All right, today we're going to talk about a guy who, no joke, started with basically nothing and ended up shaping pretty much everything about the world we live in. His name was Michael Faraday. And his story, well, it actually starts with a question that connects his time, way back then, directly to you right now. I mean, it sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? But the answer, the thing connecting them, is electricity. And here's the kicker. The person who unlocked all its potential. He wasn't some fancy university professor or a rich guy born with a silver spoon. Nope, he was a bookbinder's apprentice, and he completely changed the course of history. So to really, truly appreciate how much of a genius this guy was, you've got to understand where he started. I'm telling you, this was not a story of privilege. This was a story of pure, unstoppable determination. And basic education is putting it very mildly. He was the son of a blacksmith, and his school days were over pretty much after grade school. Now, you have to picture this. In the super rigid class system of 19th century England, the idea that a guy like him could ever break into the world of science, the odds were just astronomically against him. It was almost impossible. But Faraday, see, he had a secret weapon. His job, binding books, it put him in a room surrounded by the one thing he was desperate for. Knowledge. And he didn't just bind the books, he devoured them. He'd go to public lectures, take these incredibly detailed notes, and in just a handful of years, he launched himself from being a simple tradesman to an assistant at the absolute center of British science. It's an incredible leap. So how did he even get that job? Well, it was this unbelievable act of pure ambition. He took all those notes he made at Humphrey Davy's lectures, and he bound them into this gorgeous 300-page letter book. And then he just sent it to Davy. That was his job application. Davy was so blown away by this kid's dedication that the second a job opened up, he hired him. Just like that. Faraday literally bound his own future. Okay, and this is where the story just explodes. Once he was inside the Royal Institution, Faraday's brilliant mind was finally set free to tackle the biggest scientific mysteries of the time. And the biggest, most mysterious force of all, electricity. So back then, scientists knew that an electric current could make a magnetic field. That was established. But the huge question, the one everyone was racing to answer, was, could you do it in reverse? Could a magnet create electricity? I mean, everybody was trying to figure this out, but it was Faraday who finally cracked the code. He called it electromagnetic induction. And this all came down to his legendary experiment in 1831. Picture this. He takes an iron ring and he wraps two completely separate insulated wires around it. He hooks a battery up to the first wire, thinking he'll see a steady current pop up in the second wire. But nothing happens. Dead. Except for just a split second right when he connected the battery, the needle on his meter jumped. Then he disconnected the battery and, whoa, it jumped again. Now, anyone else probably would have just thought it was a glitch. But Faraday, he knew that tiny little twitch, that was everything. And that was the revolutionary breakthrough. It wasn't just having a magnetic field sitting there that made electricity. No, it was the change in the magnetic field. A magnet that's moving, a current that's starting or stopping, that's the magic trick. That's what creates a current in a wire nearby. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that one single discovery is the absolute bedrock of our entire modern electric world. You know, it's one thing to see a little needle twitch in a lab, but it's something else entirely to realize that that tiny twitch held the secret to powering our whole civilization. So let's take a look at how that little spark in the lab grew into the technology we literally can't live without today. I mean, this discovery was a total game changer for human history. Before Faraday, electricity was kind of like a magic show, a fun party trick for making little sparks fly. After Faraday, it became a real, controllable force that could be put to work. He didn't just discover a cool science fact. He basically wrote the instruction manual for how to make electricity whenever you want it. Think about it. His discoveries are the direct ancestors of almost everything we use. His early work on what he called electromagnetic rotation, that's the electric motor. That principle of induction we just talked about, that's the electric generator, the thing at the heart of every single power plant. Even the Faraday cage that shields our electronics from interference, that came from his experiments too. From massive power stations all the way down to the smartphone in your hand, his fingerprints are absolutely everywhere. But here's the thing that makes his story even more incredible. What's just as remarkable as his scientific brain was his character as a person. His whole life was guided by this deep, genuine humility and a really strong ethical code. I mean, for all these world-changing discoveries, he was offered the highest honor you could get from the British Empire,
A knighthood. Imagine that. For the son of a poor blacksmith becoming Sir Michael Faraday. That would have been the ultimate success story, right? It would have cemented his place among the very elites that he was born so far beneath.
And he turned it down. He just said no. See, he was guided by his deep religious faith, which taught him that chasing after worldly rewards was just a distraction from what really mattered. He said he preferred to remain plain Mr. Faraday to the end. For him, the work was for everybody, for humanity. It was never about his own personal glory.
And this wasn't just some one-time thing either. When the British government came to him and asked him to work on chemical weapons for the Crimean War, he refused, flat out, said it was unethical. He was offered the presidency of the Royal Society, like the top scientific job in the entire country, not once, but twice, and he turned it down both times. His focus was always on the science itself, not the status that came with it. And this quote from him really just says it all, doesn't it? He saw his work as this deeply personal thing, like a conversation between him and the natural world. For Faraday, the real prize was the discovery. Making a bunch of money, that would just get in the way of the real work. So when you step back and look at it, what is the lasting legacy of this humble, self-taught genius? Honestly, it's almost impossible to overstate it. He didn't just discover things, he fundamentally changed how we see and how we interact with the entire universe.
And hey, if you need any more proof of his impact, just take a look at who Albert Einstein admired. On the wall of his study, Einstein kept pictures of just 3 scientists. Isaac Newton, the guy who gave us gravity, James Clerk Maxwell, the theorist who turned Faraday's ideas into elegant equations, and Michael Faraday himself, the hands-on experimenter who started the whole revolution. That's the company he was in. Pretty amazing.
Even Ernest Rutherford, the father of nuclear physics, he didn't pull any punches. He said Faraday wasn't just a great scientist, he was one of the greatest scientific discoverers of all time, period. A true giant whose work laid the groundwork for basically the next 100 years of physics. And in the end, his legacy is literally written into the language of science. The Farad, the Faraday constant, Faraday's laws, these aren't just little notes in a history book. They are real, essential concepts that scientists and engineers use every single day. His work isn't just a chapter in the textbook. In a lot of ways, it is the textbook.
And that really brings us back to the man himself. Because Faraday's story, it's not just about electricity, is it? It's about the incredible power of curiosity, about the quiet dignity of being humble, and about the idea that maybe, just maybe, the greatest reward for doing good work is the work itself. And that kind of leaves us with a question for our own time, doesn't it? In a world so focused on profit and status, what do we really, truly value?